Chat, who's ready for some copium? Who's ready for some copium? Or just some pure imagination? Because we're going to watch a video from LawlessBaron called What Will Science Look Like in Star Citizen? All right. And we just watched a Space Tomato video, and I responded to a tweet about how, like, people in his comments are always arguing about things. And it's really simple reason why. It's because CIG doesn't tell you anything about Star Citizen. They focus on the development of Star Citizen, right? So we don't know anything about science gameplay. We don't know anything about what cargo hauling's really going to look like. We don't know anything about what mining's really going to look like many years from now when the game actually releases, right? And there's all these imaginary ideas that everybody has in their head of what the game will be. And that's why they argue in the comments. Because I don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on, and nobody else does. And then we get videos like this where you're going to have somebody explain what science looks like, probably. I haven't seen it yet. I'm hoping it's a real, like, fun and playful kind of video. But if it's one of these people that are like, this is how it's going to be, it's going to be funny. So let's check this one out. LawlessBaron, here we go.
What's up, chickies? Today we're going to be talking about what will science look like in Star Citizen. Now, this script I didn't write. This was done by Kodiak. He wanted to do it for a video of his own, but he didn't put it out there. He didn't want it to get lost or anything within the YouTube sort of search and whatnot. But I reckon people would respond really well to this, so we're going to get into it. So the topic is, what will science look like in Star Citizen? First, we'll need to determine what sciences Star Citizen will be using, as there is very little that has been released.
If you guys hear thunder and lightning, I apologize.
What we
I live
can
in Florida.
Extrapolate from the ships we know about. In very broad terms, the ships in Star Citizen can be broken down into few types. Obviously, there are combat ships, transport ships.
So already we're focused on ships and not the gameplay. Okay.
Mining ships, you get the picture. But there are a few that have either multiple roles or specialty roles.
Essentially, this video should just be what color the science laser will be.
So these are the ships we'll be looking at now. For materials, you want something like the Orion, the Expanse, and the Starfarer, as they refine one thing into another. A usable, or at least more profitable version, while technically part of the mining gameplay loop. Refining would fall under materials science. Purifying something collected from the game, we would expect something similar with other harvestables around the verse, like what we would find in the next category. So this is exploration. The Carrack, the Odyssey, the 315P, the Mustang Beta, the Connie Aquila, the 600i, the Corsair, the 400i, and the Terrapin, along with the Freelancer Dur and all of those extras.
Technically correct. But when I clicked the video, I was thinking about, like, the science profession. And now he's kind of going, well, everything is kind of a science. Like, okay, we're starting off real good.
Exploration ships. They are meant to go out and find new things, the rough, the tumble, or at least more adventurous approach to science, but great for collecting samples and data for use in our final category of ships. So the next one you have is research. So the Endeavour and the Reliant Sen. So far,
I believe this is what people would consider is science in Star Citizen, is sort of what these ships are for.
The only two true science ships we know about, and we know very little about them. But let's see what we can figure out. The Reliant Sen should be able to scan and identify various signals through its enhanced sensor suite, perhaps giving a detailed view of an area instead of a broad overview. Or if CIG decides to do so, make a jump point mapping module equipable to the size 4 mounts on the Sen, allowing it to map jump points like the Carrack, only with much less range. The Endeavour, the big boy of science, with its detachable forward section, the Endeavour is the only ship you'll need to fully explore an area, along with its selection of modules. It's your one-stop shop for science gameplay. The modules may even point to what CIG is thinking about when it comes to future science gameplay.
Is he going to make the point that none of this is in the game yet? I hope so.
We, of course, have the biodomes of the Olympic class, capable of growing food or medical plants. The medical facility and landing base of the Hope class, you can complete hospital ship. So that one will be really great to have. Let's see this one being very popular. We also have the general science and research pods of the Discovery class, the mobile laboratory. So that one will be interesting as well, and seeing what people will.
Now, if you don't think that this thing, this excited me more than anything ever in Star Citizen. I don't think I'd ever been more excited than when I saw this. And the resistance I had to buy this is insane. Think space farming. Here's like the idea that I had behind space farming, which I thought was really cool. So you know how like every sun gives off different, bands of like the light spectrum? Well, certain plants may only grow well around certain stars. So you would have to go to a certain system in Star Citizen in order to grow certain kinds of food. How cool would that be? But they're basically just showing like corn and wheat here is what it looks like, but and a random palm tree.
Come up with. These two are particularly interesting. Let's take a closer look at them. First, the Science Pod. From CIG, these are designed for analytical data gathering and house of a variety of scientific computers and data banks, mainly used for turning the raw information gathered by the general research pods or the telescopic array. It can also be used for getting data from elsewhere in the verse. This is interesting as the Science Pod seems more like storage and sorting or sifting through data collected by other means, data on plants, biomes, planets, stars, and nebulae for selling off or combining with other things to make a profit. The Research Pod. From what CIG, this is intended as a multi-use facility that can support a variety of active scientific pursuits.
Zero gravity laboratory ties into the overclocking system we've discussed in the past. Still not a thing. Deep Space Observatory. I think we kind of know what this will become. So there's the long distance probing, which was shown at CitizenCon last year, and I think was on the roadmap for like 5 minutes, and of course they took it off because that's what they do. That I think is there, and then botany lab and stuff. It's worlds undergoing terraforming process need carefully curated plant life to establish their ecosystems. That's kind of cool, but again, I look at this. When I look even at the botany lab one, it's I just think immediately like, oh, so this is just like mining and salvage and like everything in the game. So I'm growing plants for the exclusive purpose of selling it to an NPC and making money, nothing more.
Suits like biological studies, microscopy, zero-gravity experiments. It houses internal slots for precision scanners, sample
not at all.
And specimen collections, spectrometers, and chemical analyzers. It is capable of cataloging new experimental data as well as producing cutting-edge compounds. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So from this description, we can find a few other things. So precision scanners, sample and specimen collections. These will likely be the various tasks we or our crew will be able to work on.
You know what we're getting? They're still selling a $900 spaceship that has we don't know anything about except for really old design docs that probably aren't true anymore. I mean, this, out of any ship that has ever been sold in Star Citizen, I think this is the coolest one. But is it real? Is this going to be the way it's going to be? Every time they go to actually make gameplay, all of a sudden, all the things that they showed that we thought were really cool end up kind of not being this cool. Have you seen hull stripping lately? Have you seen salvage?
Scanning the nearby perfect Hadesian artifact, hoping to find anything more about the lost civilization collecting the soil, air, water, and plant matter from the newly discovered world. Perhaps bringing back some of the local fauna, xenomorph hissing boreal stalker in a cage for study. Though the strange readings we are detecting from a Quantanium asteroid that crashed down here, revealing a large deposit that can be mined with a ground base. Spectrometers and chemical analyzers could be a second loop of gameplay that comes after the scanning and collection of samples. These I could see being used both in the field and in the labs. Hand or probe scanning would allow you finding interesting things to take back for further study. I would imagine some options like the current refining process, balancing yield or detail and time. The soil of this area
I don't
would
think
be
we're
excellent
talking about
for
the same
planetary
game.
settlement.
I don't know.
And farming.
I'm starting to think that we just like look at things differently. I always am just going to look at the actual design of the gameplay and not the things that we possibly could do from a narrative perspective. Like, and I don't necessarily think he's taking the complete wrong approach at looking at this, because I would imagine that if any of this gameplay ever did end up existing in Star Citizen, there would obviously be lore reasons behind it, and there would be stories that tied into these loops. And everything that he's going into sounds like the narrative team side of a mission or a career, where when I look at everything, I just look at it from like the actual actions and the buttons that I'm pressing and when I'm pressing them and why I'm pressing them. And am I only going to make money from this? Am I going to use the items that I create or find, or what do I use them for? I think we're just coming at it from different angles, and his angle is not the angle that I find interesting. The more I think about it, the more I think it's like, yeah, this guy watches lore makers and, you know, likes that stuff, and that's totally fine. Where I watch, you know, the All About 3.17.2, you know, episode of SCL and think that that's the best content that Star Citizen makes, right?
You will then be able to sell the location to another player or an org for profit. So a lot of people don't know this about some of these modules with the data. You can sell it onwards as well, or keep it. The final two modules on the Endeavour, more interesting ones, like the telescopic array, like the recent James Webb telescope, will be able to view distant locations, and when coupled with the research pod, probably providing a detailed reading of the planet without having to travel there. Or
why
you'll
do
be
I
able
need
to
to
track
know what
down
the
a new
reading
jump point
is?
entrance, perhaps one that
You know
is
what I mean?
unstable but would allow for rapid transit to another system far from prying eyes of the UEE. This would be of particular advantage to the local smuggler groups who would pay well for its location, as well as probably being able to avoid pirates and any sort of group that would interdict you and try and pirate you or take your stuff or even try and kill you. So that's just another factor, is like finding jump points that a lot of people don't know about and being able to keep that information or sell it onwards, depending if you want to keep that sort of secret to yourself.
Do you know why people don't know about it? Because they don't talk about it anymore, because it's probably something that could change. Did we think about that? Like, we cannot go back to 2015, which is where all of this stuff is coming from, and consider that gospel anymore. You cannot do that as a Star Citizen backer. You cannot do that as a YouTuber. You cannot do that and give that information out as if it is gospel, because it probably is not. And that's just where we are right now.
And just other groups that have discovered it. So that's just one
It
thing
could be
and
true.
something I've been thinking of. And
But it most likely
lastly,
isn't.
the big ring, the overclocking master, the super collider. CIG says this is an elaborate overclocking facility. It includes a pair of white room workbench labs, ideal for tweaking and overclocking ship components like weapons or thrusters, pushing them to their theoretical limits. This clearly has some advantages: tweaking, tuning, overclocking, modding. All of this will be a way to make our ships more personal, a boost to the thrusters here, and an upgraded capacitor somewhere there. So there's just so many different things you can do with this model,
I don't know if
and
it
that's
is
something I'm taking an interest in, and a lot of the guys I'm playing with that are taking interest in. So tweaking a power plant to produce more power, so it produces 50% more power, allowing the power equivalent of 50% going to each system, or enhanced capacitors, allowing for more shots for your energy weapons, overclocking the thrusters for your daily driver, making it more agile, or having a higher SEM speed, just a little something extra to give you that little bit of an edge. So What I would like to see with this game loop is modding components of various items. Replace the stock capacitor with one that holds twice the charge. Replace the laser emitters with one made from a synthetic compound you discovered on Pyro, making shots deal 20% more damage but generate...
Now you're talking, bro. Now you're talking. Because this is where I see, this is how I look at the game. Now we're on the same wavelength, taking all the things that I do and turn it into something that is more useful.
It's much more heat per shot. Shields that absorb 5 to 15% of the incoming energy damage, which is turn recharges the shields, but would lower the overall shield strength. This is, of course, all depends on how CIG decides to do with these options and what they want to do with them. I'm sure they won't be massively overpowered, just something of a give and take for various stats. How much of this will be part of the game, we don't know, as this is a simple speculation, but it certainly shines a light on one of the lesser known game loops CIG.
If I was going to give any feedback on this video, you should have said at the very beginning that this is all pure speculation. Other than that, I totally respect the direction that he's taking at it. Because if you're going to take that, like, in lore, what am I going to be doing? Imagine kind of, really immerse myself in the game point of view. I wouldn't do that, but I'm me and he's him, and that's totally fine. I just wish that he said that at the beginning, because you don't know who's listening.
So this
and you don't
was
know
a
who
really
may buy the
interesting
game
topic.
thinking
Thank
that this
you
is
for
a
that,
thing.
Kodiak. I would really like to actually go a little bit deeper into this, and a lot of people do know my sort of take on the Super Collider on the Endeavor as well. So my whole thing is doing exactly like overclocking components, putting them like on the Banu Merchantman so I can sell them. People didn't know that you can actually repair salvage components with the Crucible, so that is another part to add into that game loop. So you can pretty much,
because it's not a thing, so we don't know if it's a thing. Like, when the Crucible comes in, are we going to be able to do that on that day? I don't know, right? That's why people don't know that, because nobody's comfortable sharing what they don't know, because you might end up looking really dumb, like CIG has since 2015 essentially.
Go out and have a dogfight with a ship, go salvage the components off it, put it on the Crucible, repair them, go and put them on the Super Collider of the Endeavor, and then do what you need to with them, and then sell them on the Banu Merchantman.
But is he talking about an exact thing that I've thought about doing in Star Citizen the entire time I've been playing the game? That exact explanation you just gave is something I wish I could do. It was everything. To, like this, like, I bought the Banu Merchantman for basically the exact reason that he just explained there.
Or even just keep them for yourself.
So to think that this guy is any different than me is crazy, because we are excited about the game for the same reason.
For stock, and then actually having to use them when you want, but having to be able to change sort of like the stock capacitors so that you can hold twice the charge, and any like sort of a laser emitter that you can change out with the synthetic compound, just changing different little pieces of a component. So that would be really cool. I see this gameplay going really far and having like unlimited possibilities, probably like not really having any fixed algorithm and anything being able to be changed into something. They may limit it at some point so that we can't make a whole heap of crazy stuff, but this is definitely going to be a cool game loop, and I see this being very, very beneficial in the future of Star Citizen. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Kodiak, for that. That was really awesome, and we'll see you in the verse.
All right, man. I think he's right. Like, until the end, the one thing that is in a skill-based game, how much are they going to let us do that? And that's one of the things that scares me about Star Citizen, is like when he goes, oh man, I hope I can make my capacitor twice the size. Well, do they really want one person to have double the capacitor that another one has? Because that would be a really huge advantage. Like, that's what he's looking at. Like, man, I want to work really hard, do all this grinding, learn everything about all these mechanics so I can make my capacitor twice the size. I don't think they're going to do that, not in a skill-based game. So it's it's one of those things where I wish it was the same way, but it's just not. So let me go ahead and link the video to you guys. There you go. And yeah, it just comes down to I find it really interesting how him and I see the game in the exact same way, but then he takes this totally different approach of like all this imaginary stuff, and I'm just looking at it as like, what am I going to like? What button am I going to be clicking, and why? You know, but we both come to the same conclusion of why we are excited for the game. So it just shows that even people who you wouldn't think are similar to you just are. So that's awesome. Thank you for the video, Lawless.